Hey, what is up, everybody? It's election week. It is election week. All right, it's a big one. It's a big one. Here we go. The pitch on the right is basically this, so you know what we're dealing with. The pitch on the right is this. There's inflation, crime, the right for parents to make decisions for their children, i.e., what they are taught at schools, things like that, sex education, radical gender theory, so on and so forth. We'll get into it. You know what they are. And also keeping schools open, parents having the rights in terms of if they are going to give their kids, we'll call them jabs for the C word. Do you know what I mean? I got to say the C word because we keep getting dinged on social media, which is part of what we're talking about today. That's basically the pitch on the right, all right? Now, what happens if we don't vote for Republicans? Basically, higher inflation, higher crime, this and all those things we just laid out. That's basically the pitch on the right. The pitch on the left is this, basically. There's something that's on the ballot, all right? And that thing on the ballot is, hold on, I keep forgetting the word because they're not saying enough. Let me check my records and see what they're saying. What's on the ballot?
Make no mistake, democracy is on the ballot for all of us.
Democracy is on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot. Think about this.
Democracy is on the ballot.
Democracy is actually on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot.
And democracy is on the ballot.
Do you believe that democracy is on the ballot in Utah?
It is on the ballot.
Democracy is on the ballot this year in America.
Somebody's got to tell voters what they need to hear, which is that democracy is on the ballot.
Do you got that yet? Do you know what's on the ballot according to the left? Democracy itself is on the ballot. What happens if you don't vote for the Dems? You lose democracy. 100% is the end of everything. Now, it might help if we had a presidential historian to tell us, well, what do you think happens if we don't vote for the Dems this week? Do we lose our democracy? Or is it even worse?
And a historian 50 years from now, if historians are allowed to write in this country, and if there are still free publishing houses and a free press, which I'm not certain of, but if that is true, a historian will say what was at stake tonight and this week was the fact whether we will be a democracy in the future, whether our children will be arrested and conceivably killed. We're on the edge of a brutal authoritarian system, and it could be a week away.
They're lining up kids and killing them. Here's the thing. Is democracy on the ballot? Actually, I got to be honest. I think democracy is on the ballot. I just believe it in the complete opposite, inverse way than what you're actually hearing. We're going to talk about it today right here on Cooper Stuff. Cooper Stuff! What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Cooper Stuff. I hope that you are doing all right. All right, so here we go. Democracy is on the ballot. What does that even mean? That's what we're going to talk about today. Some people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I learned so much on that. And I'll be like, you're welcome. You're welks. Okay. The key to understanding what people mean when they say this, democracy is on the ballot or democracy, it's the way that definitions are defined. That is pretty much going to be, you're going to find the key to most things that we're all disagreeing on, especially within Christianity. We're using words. We are not talking about the same things. We're going to go through that here in a second. Before I do, I need to tell you guys something pretty exciting. We are running a sale on Hawk and Hatchet. Now, some of you have wondered, John, how does this beard look so very glorious? I will tell you, because I use the most amazing beard oil ever. Hawk and Hatchet, which is, I'm a part owner of, as you know, the John Cooper Signature Series of beard products are so sick, and we are running a special right now. If you buy a beard kit, you are going to get a solid cologne for free. All right, we're doing it from now all the way to Christmas time. So if you're looking for gifts for your man, for your husband, your son, your boyfriend, whatever, you got to go. First of all, you got to encourage them to grow a sweet beard. Then they need to go and get some of these products. So let me tell you what the beard kit includes. It includes my signature all natural Hawk and Hatchet beard oil. This stuff is amazing. It smells great. It also includes beard wax. Once your beard gets a tiny bit, longer than, when you trim it, and all of a sudden it gets a little bit long, it stops itching. You're going to need some beard wax to tame it. Also, beard shampoo. No woman wants to be around a stinky beard, okay? And if you buy that, you are going to get the solid cologne for free, which comes Check this out. It comes in like this sort of thing. Smells awesome. It's this very same scent as the beard oil. All right, so you don't have to have 2 scents on. So check it out. Go to hawkandhatchet.com. Buy the beard kit. You're going to get this. This is over $20 product right here you're getting for free. So go and check that out. Now we're going to jump into it. So we're going to be talking about some of the definitions today. We're going to be getting to that. Let me tell you basically what I'm voting for. I love people if you don't agree with the way that I vote. I'm just telling you the way that I vote. As Christians, we have to take our faith and say, what does this look like in the practicality? People are going to disagree about a lot of that stuff. Believe it or not, I have a lot of grace for people that disagree with me. I said in an interview recently, I've said it in several interviews. Here's the thing. I personally think that Republicans are going to bring Americans, we're going to just straight into the pit of Hades. I just don't think they're going to lead us there as quickly as Democrats. The Republicans are not the hope of the earth. Jesus Christ is the hope of the earth. No matter what happens this week, our hope is not in America. It's not in our politicians. Our hope is in Jesus Christ. And not just saying, yeah, when I die, my hope is in Jesus Christ. Jesus gives us commands on how we are to live today. We have an idea of what it means to live for Jesus, how to apply the words of Christ and his commands to my life today so that I can live like him and so I can love God with all my heart and I can love other people, right? That's what Jesus bases today. The commands are basically this: love the Lord God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the other commandment is like it: love your neighbor like you love yourself. We need Jesus to help us do that. I don't know if you are as bad of a person as I am, but if you are, then you need Jesus to help you do that. Guess what? You are. All right. So we need Jesus to help us do that. Christians, we have to decide then how do we put that into politics? How do we come to just law that glorifies God? I grant it that people are going to disagree with me on some of these things. So I love you no matter who you vote for. But the way that I see it is this. What am I going to vote for? Here's the things I'm voting for. Number one, I'm going to vote for life. I don't see any way around that from the scriptures. When I say life, yes, I'm really just mainly talking about abortion because it is the most extreme example of horror in our country since slavery. Slavery is the only thing that really can compare to this. You're talking about somewhere between 800,000 lives to 1 million lives a year, legally sanctioned murder. So I just don't see anything that can be quite like that. So for all the Christians, especially on the left, the Christian left is constantly, Micah 6:8, walk in justice, walk with God, walk humbly, love justice, whatever. Micah 6:8, yeah. What is a greater issue of justice than fighting for the unborn? I can't think of anything, all right? So we may talk about this a little later. I'm not about to delve into a big thing on abortion on this episode, but we may touch on it a little bit. But that's my number one thing. It just is. The number two thing that's an issue to me is the incredible, I would say, lack of meaning, lack of an acknowledgement of reality that is happening in our culture when it comes to sex and gender. I can't think of anything. I mean, this is almost as big of an issue as abortion to me. And I will tell you why. It's almost as big of an issue because it's not just that there are some people that believe this thing. It's that it is being forced onto the rest of culture through a very authoritarian fashion and forcing all of culture to deny the existence of physical reality. The ramifications of that for a society of saying basically that physical reality isn't necessarily actually real. I mean, that is a complete postmodern worldview. But I know some people go, oh, here we go, postmodernism, worldview. That actually has concrete meaning. It's not just academic language of, we can't vote for that because it's postmodern. No, what it means is this: a denial of physical reality. That this world, the things that you see, the things you touch, that they are not actually real, that they are actually just perceptions of your brain. Can you imagine trying to build a society like that? It makes absolutely no sense. And what is happening is that is not only being foisted on all of society and all of us in an authoritarian fashion, it is being foisted onto our children. This is the reason, you guys, there is such a massive, I would say, A lot of people keep calling it a red wave. You can call it whatever you want to, but this kind of swing that you can feel right now. There's a swing in culture happening, which is good news, by the way. Let me explain something though. It's not amazing news. It's good news. It's not amazing news, and I will explain why in 1 second. But it is very good news. There is a shift happening in culture where even people that are typically on the left, people that vote Democrat, not even necessarily, I'm not talking about Christian left, some on the Christian left as well, but I'm talking about just the secular left, okay? There is a switch happening when they are saying, hey, what are you doing to my kids? What are you doing to my kids? Let me think about what you think about.
Think about what you think about.
That's exactly right. Think about what you think about. That's all I can say. All right? It is time for us to do what we've been doing. That time is every day.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
That's exactly right. Think about what you think about. It's time to think about what you think about, and that time is every day, okay? What are they doing to our kids? There's a shift happening. That's very good. Now, it's not amazing news because this is why I say amazing news would be that the shift is happening because people realize that this is a denial of God's creation. That's why I say the hope is not the Republican Party, okay? I think that the Democrat Party is going to lead us to hell a bit faster than the Republican Party. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I don't think there's a clear way that my faith means I should vote. I'm just saying the hope is the Republican Party. The hope is the Word of God and acknowledging God's created order. So amazing news would be if more and more Christians and the Christian left and even the secular left would go, you know what? This is a denial that there is a created order and there is transcendent meaning. That there's a God that created a world, and because he created the world a certain way, that means that you have inherent meaning because your meaning is found in the meaning of Christ. My worth as a human being is not found in how great John Cooper is or how smart John Cooper could be. Not that smart, by the way, not the dumbest ever, not the smartest ever, just like you. Your worth is not found in your gifts. Your worth is found in the fact alone that there is a creator and he created you. Boom, you have worth. Why? Because God himself took the time to decide who you would be, what your hair color is, your eye color, how tall you are. Do you see what I'm saying? The way you talk, the way you laugh. All those things were created and chosen by a God who takes the time to do it. Why? Because you're valuable. So amazing news would be if more Americans, and especially more Christians, would say, we have to fight this insanity that's happening in radical gender theory, in this insane sex education for kids, not just because it is a form of child abuse, which I believe that it is, not just because they are pushing it onto our kids and it's going to lead to absolutely horrific results that we can't even understand. You guys, listen to Cooper stuff as I tell you what's going to happen in the future. 10 years from now, there is going, I am so sad to say it, the amount of depression and sadness and suicidal thoughts, and I pray not, but I fear suicides from a generation that was taught this nonsense. It is going to be so absolutely devastating. So I'm glad people are fighting it, but we need to fight it on the right ground. Yes, it's crazy. Yes, we can't do this to kids, but there's a deeper reason. It's because it is a denial of God's created order and that you have meaning because God created you a certain way. He created you to be a man or he created you to be a woman, and we should celebrate that. It has nothing to do with hating people who suffer with gender dysphoria or with anything. Absolutely nothing to do with that. So I know that some people they're fudging what the issue is about. That's not what it's about. It's about loving people. So that's my number 2 thing. My number 3 thing is the power of the authoritarian state overreaching into your life to force us to do something that elites in this country, whether they're on the left or the right, they do not have the right to do that. It's going to be bad if they do that. They're going to lead us into tyranny if they do that. We need to fight that. Whether that authoritarianism is coming from the left or coming from the right, guess what? It can come from either side. It just happens that right now, it's all coming from the left. And that's been the trend in America, even though the left says it's coming from the right, which is why you get the democracies on the ballot. So here's the plan for what we're going to do today. Number one, we're going to go through what the Republicans are saying that those issues are, all right? And we're going to talk about that. Number two, we're going to go through what the Democrats are saying and why they think democracy is at stake. Number three, we are going to talk about why I think that the Democrats are correct in the fact that democracy is on the ballot, but they have inverted the truth. In other words, I agree with this statement, but I believe that what they are saying is the opposite of the truth. And finally, the reason I think it's the opposite of the truth is because the way they define democracy is not the way that I define democracy, not the way that conservatism defines it. So we're going to talk about that as we jump in. So here we go. By the way, I'm having to use my little phone. My internet's broken, so you're going to see me squinting my eyes for this little phone. The internet went totally out in our city, okay? All right, so here we go. Number one, what are the Republicans saying? As you guys know, inflation is a huge issue. This is also why there's such a huge change happening. People are going, man, inflation's gotten so bad. I can't afford eggs, bacon, gas, like meat, the stuff that we all have to buy. We just can't afford it. The grocery bills are absolutely insane. And that is having a huge effect. But what you find the Democrats are saying, actually, that's not even true. In fact, the Republicans are kind of making it up. You got to see this video. This is absolutely remarkable. This is Joy Reid on MSNBC. Watch this video.
The only people I ever hear use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk. So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it, including on TV, including in newspapers. They've been taught this word.
That is insane. What she's saying is that people don't even know what inflation is, and nobody uses that word. That's a legal scholar. This is the same thing they said about critical race theory. It's the very same thing they said about critical race theory. That's not even happening. Nobody even knows what that is. It's not even a thing that people do. They learn that in legal school. Everybody, here's the thing. Here's the reason it's actually different than critical race theory. The one thing that they were saying that was true about critical race theory was that people recognized what was going on. They didn't know it was called something. So, yeah, your layperson did not know the term critical race theory. And yes, it's very confusing and this, that, and the other, but the rest of that was a lie. We're not going to get into that. The rest of that was untrue. But the reason that doesn't have anything to do with this is because everybody not only knows what inflation is, everybody uses the word inflation. What are they talking about? You guys know what inflation is. Now, the truth is that even if people don't know the word, it doesn't matter. What she's insinuating is that not only does nobody know the word, this isn't even a thing that's happening. She's saying that Republicans are just making this up. They need to win, so they're making up a problem, which they call these rising prices, and then they made up a name for it that they saw in some legal textbook or some science, like, what did she say, academic textbook, and then they foisted it on everybody else and convinced them it was happening. Everybody knows inflation is happening. Speaking of the fact that everybody knows inflation is happening, this is why you might want to put a little bit of your retirement funds into precious metals. You've been hearing me talk about it. My friends at SD Bullion, I've been talking about it for a year. Inflation is happening. People do know what the word means. It's a word with a definition. And what it means is this. When you go buy fuel, you go, why is this so much money? It's because of inflation. And what that means is that your retirement funds are not going to be worth as much as they were now because the dollar isn't worth as much. It's actually not complicated. I think everybody knows. I think you're smarter than a lot of people I'm finding out on the other side think that you are. Here's what you got to do. You got to text the word Cooper, that's my last name, to 465-322. That spells gold 22. 465-322. My friends at SD Bullion, they are going to send you something to read. It's going to explain to you why it's good to diversify your funds. I'm not suggesting you go sell all of your retirement funds and buy a whole bunch of gold. I'm just saying you may want to consider buying a little bit in case the very worst happens. You always have something at your house in your hands. Plus, it's just cool to own gold. You know, I love gold. The taste of it, the smell of it. It's awesome feeling, all right? But then you have it in case the worst happens because it retains its value. It's a Christian company. They send it straight to your door. They give you great prices. They give you great products, all right? They're going to send you something for free to read information on it. Or if you go, actually, I'd just like to buy a little bit of gold. I have $50 and I'd like to do a little bit of that right now. They're going to give you a discount on your first order. So text Cooper 465-322 to get started today. That's my last pitch for the show today, by the way. All right, so back to this. Number one, inflation. So that's that. The thing is that argument's not going to work. Inflation is a thing that is happening. Everybody knows it. The second thing you keep hearing the Republicans talk about is crime. This is another thing that's just insane to me. So what the Democrats are saying is that, maybe, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you. I'm going to play the video and then I'll tell you. So let's watch this video.
There's a major concern surrounding the racist rhetoric that often goes hand in glove with law and order messages.
Republicans are pulling out all the old fear and loathing playbook, trying to scare voters about crime.
They're not concerned about voter safety. They just want to keep voters scared.
They have now turned to a strategy that sensationalizes crime, that weaponizes crime, and that racializes crime.
The other guys play the crime card relentlessly and shamelessly. It's got racial elements to it. Let's just call that for what it is.
The type of crime that scares Republican and independent voters the most, to make them believe that crime is skyrocketing, that America is a hellhole. And the thing is, it works. Dystopian, nakedly racist video, preferably grainy security cam footage featuring almost exclusively black people committing crime in big cities.
All right, by the way, that video was from Tucker Carlson, by the way. So here's what's happening. Everybody knows that crime is absolutely out of control. It's not the case that right-wing media is cherry-picking certain things and making it seem like this is happening everywhere. Yes, the media does do that sort of thing. Yes, the mainstream media specializes in that sort of thing. Have you not noticed that in the last couple of years? Right? It's the reason that if there's going to be a major story, it's typically only going to be like, one way in terms of maybe, the color of people's skin and this and this and this. Yes, the mainstream media does do that. Does the right-wing media do that too? Of course, yes, I'm sure they do that. The thing is that everybody knows this is happening. There's actual proof that is happening. We have statistics. We see it happening. And it's not only that, it's that the crimes are getting just more random. You're talking about going to the grocery store and just getting cold cocked by somebody. That sort of thing is happening. It's statistically true. Now, the other reason that this is such a big deal is that if you pick up on the video, what they're trying to say is this. There's always a move on the left. It's not that I'm trying to demonize the left all the time, but it's in the ideology. In the ideology of the left, they don't see crime in the same way that people on the right see crime. People on the right see crime as this. And this is certainly, it should be all Christians, but all Christians unfortunately don't have a Christian worldview. Hello. That makes me want to drink something out of my new cup. You see that right there? Don't worry, they're going to be for sale. Because I smell something. I smell commies. These are going to be for sale pretty soon. Tell me that's not good, right? Actually, it makes your coffee taste better. Hello, they'll be for sale soon. Don't worry. It's because a lot of Christians don't have a Christian worldview either. Christians and people on the right, here's how they view humanity. Humanity is fallen. We are born into sin. In theology, of course, we call it the doctrine of original sin. You're born into sin. That means that you want to do bad stuff. It's so funny. You're going to do bad stuff. It's not even that I don't understand. It's so funny because people get so upset. They're like, you can't, this is so dark. Yeah, it's dark, which is why we need Jesus. You're right. You're right. It is dark. It is sad. It is negative. It's the truth. And if you don't believe that we are born into sin and we have a bent towards doing wickedness, and that we like doing wickedness and we like being selfishness, and if given the chance, we will lie, cheat, steal, do whatever we have to do to get ahead of other people in life, then all of a sudden what you're going to do is you are going to institute public policy that is going to turn out really, really poorly. And that is what's happening on the left. It's not just that crime is getting worse. It's getting worse for lots of reasons. But one of the things that would change it would be to change your worldview. The issue is not that people have not been, people do bad crimes because they're not given enough money. People do bad crimes because they got treated bad when they were kids and they gave them the sads. And if we just give them the happies, then everything will be all right and we can fix it. And nobody's going to do something bad. If it's insanity. I read you a few weeks ago, I read you guys from Wilhelm Reich, author of The Sexual Revolution. And a lot of you're like, delete it, please delete out of my brain because it was so satanic and disgusting. I never want to hear it again. I feel you. Wilhelm Reich is like, hey, if you just take all restraints off of sexuality, and when he says that, he's talking about from infancy, if you God forbid you remember what I read to you. I'm not going to read it today. Don't worry. I'm not going to read it today. But if you just take all sexual restraints out and you make sure that everybody's having sex, then nobody's going to do anything bad. Nobody steals if they are sexually fulfilled. Nobody goes and hurts somebody else if they are sexually fulfilled. Because if they're sexually fulfilled, then all of a sudden they just enjoy doing work and everything is magically fixed. It's magic, I mean, this is sexual utopianism. Well, people on the right are like, no, that's not actually a thing. People are going to sin. Why? Because we are born into sin. And we need Jesus Christ, and we need his laws, we need his commands in order to teach us what we are supposed to do. And so you institute that into society. That is why the left doesn't get crime. That's why they want to get rid of bail. That's why you keep seeing on the news, they keep playing these things, and then they go, well, actually, this person has actually been in jail 8 or 9 times. They're out on bail for free, even though they just committed. They could literally have just committed like sexual assault, and they could be let out of jail or let out on bail, not out of jail, excuse me, on bail, or let out of jail early. They go and cold cock somebody, they throw somebody into a subway in your city, and then the Republicans go, why is this person out of jail? And then the left says, why are you being such a racist? That's kind of how the game is played. I hope that you're hearing it on the video. And what else I hope it does is I hope that it gives you a security in your positions to where you understand that 90% of the time when people are screaming about racism and about you being a racist, if you say a thing, it's not true. It's just because they've redefined the word. Us saying that there is a rise in crime and that, like, we're talking about murder and violent crime in the major cities in America. People on the right, we don't care what color their skin is. We don't think that it's a good thing that is happening. So what you just got to know, when people start saying these things, you have to have thick skin. Because I know what can happen is you start going, they just called me a sexist or a racist. I don't care about people that are hurting, and maybe you're right because Jesus wants me to care about the poor. That's not what's going on. So far, the two main issues that Republicans currently, it looks like, are winning big time on. They're winning bigly. They're bigly winning. The main two issues that even people on the left are going, actually, I kind of agree with them about that. Those main two issues, the main people, Democrats on the left are saying, those aren't even real. The Republicans are just making that up to make you so fearful that you get all worked up and you just go run out and vote. It's the same thing they did about critical race theory. And we'll get into the rest in a second, but I think that's kind of a big deal. So when it comes to crime, pagans are going to pag. Actually, before we go to the next thing, I just need to mention this too. You have to understand that people on the left, because of their worldview, it's utopian, right? And it's also one of big government. Government needs to fix everything. Government is the dad. Government is God, basically, okay? So the other principle they work off is equity. And equity, which is not equality. Equity means that we all end in the same place. That's the best way to say it. All right. So everybody's outcomes are the same, economically, health. You take any issue in the whole world you want to. All right. How often people eat ice cream? Break them up into races, and everybody has to eat ice cream the same amount, or else there's injustice happening. That's what they mean by equity. They have applied this idea of equity to crime. And so what they mean when they say that crime is the policy is racist and this and that and the other, part of what they mean is that we have to have each race. So in other words, you put everybody into races: white, black, brown, so on and so forth. And then you have to look and see who is in prison, look who and see is being arrested, look who and see is being pulled over by the police. And everything needs to be exactly proportionate to their percentage of the population. Does that make sense? So for instance, if I don't know what percentage of America is white. Let's just say that 60% of America is white, and I don't know what answer that is. But let's just say hypothetically it's 60%. Well, then that means that 60% of the people in jail need to be white. If there are 13% of Americans who are black, then that means people in jail need to only have 13% of people black. It has to perfectly correspond. And if it doesn't perfectly correspond, then there's inequity. There's injustice defined by the percentages. That's what they mean. Now, people on the right just go, well, no, you put people in jail based on the fact of who is actually committing crimes. That is not how utopian people think. That is not what they mean by equity. That's why they say there's the criminal justice system is disproportionately, black or brown or racist or whatever they do. That's the way they say it. Well, if there's only, again, I don't know these percentages off the top of my head, but let's just say hypothetically there's 13 or 15% of Americans are black, yet whatever it is, 40%, and I don't remember the number. It might be 30, it might be 40, I can't remember. X percent, which is much higher than the percentage of population, is who is in jail that are black. So say 40% are 40% of people in jail are black, then it's a sign of inequity. So then you focus the crime policy to make sure that isn't happening. So how do you do that? Well, you have to let X amount of people out of prison, or let X amount of people out on bail, or not try certain kind of crimes if this color person's skin produces a disproportionate amount of those crimes. So then you de-emphasize the criminality of certain crimes over others. All of a sudden what you are doing is you are manipulating justice. You're manipulating what the word crime even means. You see, there's no objective standard of what is right and wrong. That is a totally different worldview. So now let's move on to the next thing. All right. I want to say this is number 2, democracy on the ballot. Why are Democrats saying that? I want to be as fair as I can possibly be. Democrats are saying democracy is on the ballot. The biggest reason is that they have a different definition of what democracy means. But that's the main point of what I want to talk about today, so I'm going to save that for the end. Before we get to there, this is what I think they're talking about. Number 1, they are very, very upset about what happened with the overturning of Roe. This is what sparked Biden's the MAGA Republicans are semi-fascist. They are trying to take your liberties away. They're trying to roll back things. They're coming for you. They're coming for your rights, which is usually what people on the right say. But the left is saying it. Why are they saying that? Let's talk about this as fair as I possibly can. They are saying that the Supreme Court is coming after your rights. They're rolling them back, and those people on the right are they're trying to take them all away. The reality is this. It's because of the definition of what they believe about what democracy is, which I'll get to, but basically, they believe in big government. And when they don't get what they want, then what they do is they say, okay, fine, we're going to impose it. And in this case, abortion's what they wanted in the 1970s. Abortion's what we want. We're not getting it because not all the states want to do it. Okay, not all the states want to. They had the choice to do it. So some states by 1970 had abortion. They had access to abortion. Some states were like, no, we don't want to do that in our state. This made the Democrats mad because that's not how they see things working. We have to impose what we know to be the best thing for everybody across the entire land. So then what they do is they institute the Supreme Court to basically make law. Right, which is not what the Supreme Court's supposed to do. So they go above the way that America's democracy is supposed to work, a representative democracy, if you will. We are a republic. They go above them, they go to the Supreme Court, and then they say, We need you to push down on everybody else what we're going to do. And the Supreme Court ended up doing something that is just bad law. Even people on the left agree that it's bad law. Famously, Ruth Gator, how do you, I always get her name right, RBG? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it's a hard name for me to say, idolized leftist, progressivist judge they love RBG, okay? She's basically like, hey, I'm pro-choice. I want it, but it was bad law. It should not have been imposed that way. So the truth is that all that's happening now is that the Supreme Court is rectifying something that was wrong. It was wrong. They are not supposed to do that. It was bad law. That is not the job of the Supreme Court. That is actually against what America's founding fathers, instituted. So basically what's happening now is that we are rectifying something that was wrong rather than having the Supreme Court push their ideas down upon everybody else. That's not what's happening. It's going back to the states. So people that live in states that love abortion, you still have abortion. You get to vote on it. I think that that's a really good thing because I believe there's a better chance, of the church in my little city becoming so evangelistic and so blessed by God because we love the Lord Jesus Christ and we love his word and we love his commandments and we love holiness and we say, God, we want to become more holy, and the more that you are doing a work in my church and in my local churches, all of a sudden people are looking at the church and saying, they are saying true things. And all of a sudden that light begins to shine in the darkness. And all of a sudden my city starts to change their mind about what is righteous and what is wicked. I believe that is possible. I believe there's a better chance in changing America by changing cities. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, it's like a spark that then starts a fire. I don't want to go. I don't want to go try to make the Supreme Court do something to make everybody change. I think it's a great opportunity for the church to start where I live, right here. I'm into it. So all that it does is it pushes it back to the states. So the idea that it's semi-fascism, that we're taking rights away, no, we're rectifying something that was wrong, and it's going back to the states. So what I'm trying to say is it's actually just not true. But it reveals something. It reveals that what the left really means when they talk about abortion is not what people have claimed it means. Even Christians on the left. Now, I'm about to go off on some Christians real fast before we move on. I am so tired of our Christian leaders. So many of them. By the way, let me say this first before I start going off. Thank God for awesome Christian leaders. If you are blessed, like I am, to have awesome people of God who lead your church or and your elders, your home group leaders, your Sunday school leaders, whatever your situation is, your parents as well. You need to thank God for those people. I have those leaders and I thank God for them every single day. Pray for them. Thank God for them. A lot of people are standing up and I am so very excited. Thank you and do not stop. But when it comes to what I call it the Christian intelligentsia, that's the platformed leaders, the ones that are writing the articles, the ones that have all the influence, and it makes it seem like there's almost like people who pastor pastors, you know what I mean? Maybe we're talking about the Gospel Coalition, things like that. A lot of these people are letting us down to such a huge degree that they are constantly telling people like me and people like you to calm down and be nice about this. No, you have to understand abortion is a complex issue. No, it's not. It's not a complex issue. These people know that it's not complex. They are just trying to be friendly to the world. It drives me nuts because here's what they always do. Whenever the world, or let's just say the world, let's just say whenever the hardcore left says to Christians, you people you're scared, you're trying to take away our democracy. You never see the Christian intelligentsia ever say to them, hey, you guys need to calm down. What you're saying is not actually true. Never. The Christian intelligentsia never say that. But every time we say the left is trying to take our rights away, they're coming for your kids, the Christian intelligentsia says, shh, you gotta be nice. Shh. I smell something. The mug says it. I smelling some commies. I just made that up. I'm a songwriter. The Holy Spirit gives me something to say and I just have to. It's a song. Gee whiz. It's true, isn't it? They never say to the left, hey, what you're saying is actually a lie. But they always say to the right, shh, be nice. Don't do it. We got to show that we're friendly. It drives me absolutely bananas. All right, anyway, back to my story. Did you guys see this thing where the actress, what is the girl's name? She played Catwoman, and all of a sudden I can't remember her name. Yes, okay, Anne Hathaway. Here's what she said. Abortion can be, quote, another word for mercy. My own personal experience with abortion, and I don't think we talk about this enough, abortion can be another word for mercy, she said on The View. We don't know. We know that no two pregnancies are alike, and it follows that no two lives are alike. It follows that no two conceptions are alike. This is just crazy. She continues, so how can we have a law? How can we have a point of view on this that says we must treat everything the same? When you allow for choice, you allow for flexibility, which is what we need in order to be human. I'm just so tired of this. What the left wants is abortion with no restrictions. So this idea that you hear from the intelligentsia, well, it's complex and we do have to understand. That's not what's going on. They call it things like this. Notably, in the last year, arguing in Congress, this is the things you're hearing. Quote, abortion is an act of love. Quote, Anne Hathaway, abortion is an act of mercy. That's not actually what's going on. So I don't know. I get really tired of seeing the Christian intelligentsia never, ever have my back, but always chastise me when the left is saying what they're saying. So I want to say the second thing that the left is saying, beside what they mean by the democracy thing, besides the abortion thing, the other main thing they're talking about is election. And I can't say the other word or I'll get dinged on social media, which proves part of the point I'm making today about the authoritarian nature of what's happening in America. What they call election, and I'm going to spell the next word, D-E-N-Y, aisle. or I should say, ERS. Election, D-E-N-Y, ERS. Those people that do not accept what's going on. This is their big thing. And you guys, it is so overwrought. To be fair, January 6th was horrible, but everybody said it was horrible. This is why it's so annoying. They keep beating this dead horse over and over and over. I keep beating a dead horse, which is called the BLM protests that burned my city down. The reason I keep beating it over and over and over is because the majority of the left will not say it was bad. And a lot of the left, I'd say 50%, actually said that it was basically good. They're not saying they love the violence. They're saying, yeah, but we get why it's here. Sometimes you need violence. Why? Because violence is the cry of the people, or whatever that quote is from MLK. Violence is when people aren't being heard. And that, in other words, yeah, sometimes you're going to have that in order to get to democracy. They will not say that it was bad. Or one of my first, you remember in 2020 when you started having those conversations with friends and you lost some friends? My first big one was about the violence. I was saying to my friends, hey, it was a friend of mine. I'm like, look, if you want to support BLM, I love you either way. You can march with BLM. All that I'm saying is that you do need to condemn the violence. You have to. I don't care. You go march with them. I still love you. You can still be a Christian. We can have unity in the faith. I was trying my very, very best. She refused to condemn it. Actually, she was basically like, John, you know what? The violence, actually, there was no BLM violence. All the violence was committed by white supremacists who came in and did the violence to make it look like BLM was being violent. This is some of the stuff you hear on the news from Minnesota. So what we're being told is this. They aren't committing any violence. It's actually white supremacists doing it. Secondly, the violence actually isn't bad and needed to be done in order to reach equity. I don't even know what to say. So I'm beating that dead horse because at large, the left and even the Christian left will not say it was bad. Now let's look at the other side. January 6th was really bad. Cooper stuff condemned it. Everybody on the right condemned it. Ben Shapiro, Glenn Beck, the biggest names on the right, Rush Limbaugh before he died, Sean Hannity, everybody condemned it, but they keep still bidding it over and over and over and over. I want to show you a video. This is just a compilation. It's a little bit long, but I think you're going to really like it. This is why I'm so annoyed about it. Is I don't want to play the game of what do you call it? Other side, well, your side did the same thing. I'm all in. If you want to start saying, let's stop saying that elections were fill in the blank with whatever word that you want to use that won't get me yanked off social media, that they weren't done fairly. Whatever word you want to use. Sure, let's all quit saying that. But let's not pretend that 2020 is the first time it's been said. Here's a compilation that I made for you because I love you. I'm going to show this, showing that actually this has been going on the left as well for a long time.
Citizens tried to exercise their constitutional rights and were still denied the ability to elect their leaders. Democracy failed Georgia. Let's be clear. This is not a speech of concession, because concession means to acknowledge an action is right, true, or proper. As a woman of conscience and faith, I cannot concede that.
Leader Abrams, thanks so much for joining us. You said that, quote, democracy failed in Georgia. Obviously, you're referring to some of the messy process of democracy, as you called it, incompetence and mismanagement. But do you think that there was deliberate interference in the election?
Yes.
Trump knows he's an illegitimate president who got illegitimate foreign help. He knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you. I know that he knows that this wasn't on the level.
Why do you think the president is going to such great lengths to essentially prove that he beat you?
Because he knows he didn't. He knows he's an illegitimate president. I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president.
We're back now with Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. He is the fourth-ranking Democrat in the House leadership and joins us this morning. No one has seen the details of this report yet. What is it that you were actually looking to get and hear from the Attorney General today? What can we expect?
This is a serious national security investigation. 17 different intelligence agencies concluded that Russia interfered with our election, attacked our democracy in order to try and artificially place Donald Trump at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's a very serious thing. The American people deserve to know whether Donald Trump is either A, a legitimate president, B, a Russian asset, C, the functional equivalent of an organized crime boss, or D, just a useful idiot who happens to have been victimized by the greatest collection of coincidences in the history of the Republic.
Congressman, it sounds like you've come to your own conclusions.
That's a question. I haven't drawn a conclusion. What I'm saying is that
the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler, said it is very clear the president obstructed justice. He said that before the report even came out or was concluded. Republicans are going to look at this and just say you are making a case for impeachment regardless of what is presented to you by the Attorney General.
Do you plan on trying to forge a relationship with Donald Trump?
I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You do not consider him a legitimate president? Why is that?
I think the Russians participated in helping this man get elected, and they helped destroy the candidacy of Hillary Clinton. I don't plan to attend inauguration. It would be the first one that I miss since I've been in the Congress. You cannot be at home with something that you feel that is wrong.
That's going to send a big message to a lot of people in this country that you don't believe he's a legitimate president.
I think there was a conspiracy on the part of the Russians and others to help him get elected. That's not right. That's not fair. That's not the open democratic process.
Are remarkable words given the moral authority and democratic witness that John Lewis has bore throughout his life.
Coming from John Lewis, it resonates even more than it would from anybody else.
How could people in power in Mexico do business with him?
Right now, I think he's an illegitimate president of the United States.
Why is he illegitimate? He just won an election.
He would have to legitimize. He didn't win the general elections.
The irony is Donald Trump is an illegitimate president. He did not win the election without help from Russia. You will see this. And he knows he's illegitimate. Every time you mention it, he freaks out.
Interfered with one of our human rights, which is the right of free and fair elections. What's your reaction? How should we deal with Russia?
Well, the president himself should condemn it, admit that it happened, and there's no doubt that the Russians did interfere in the election. And I think the interference, although not yet quantified, if fully investigated, would show that Trump didn't actually win the election in 2016. He lost the election, and he was put into office because the Russians interfered on his behalf.
So do you believe President Trump is an illegitimate president?
Based on what I just said, which I can't retract.
But Jane, it was like applying for a job and getting 66 million letters of recommendation and losing to a corrupt human tornado. And so I know that he knows that this wasn't on the level.
There you go. That's a lot of people saying that elections weren't legitimate. What are they talking about? Democracy is on the ballot. They're going to line up kids and kill them. Well, democracy is on the ballot, just not in the way that they mean it. So, you know what? I'm just saying this. Look, I'm trying to be as fair as I can. I understand what they're saying. It's just an inversion of the truth. It doesn't mean that I don't condemn January 6th because I did. You guys know I never once said that 2020's election was fill in the blank. All right. Fill in the blank with a word that means that I don't buy it and I'm fighting it. I didn't go to the Capitol. I never once said that. All right. So I just think there's a lot of silly things being said to make it sound like that people on the right are trying to end democracy. However, I do think democracy is on the ballot in the inverted way than a lot of commies mean it. And it all comes down to this. So number one, here's my proof of it. Number one, what do you call it when the federal government sends 20 armed, full body armor, full automatic or weapons, rifles to pro-lifers' houses to arrest them? What do you call that? What do you call it when people are being let out of prison, even for violent crimes, for rapes, for randomly attacking someone on the street, beating up old women? I'm sorry, I don't care who it is. Some dude goes up and beats up a rando old woman. You throw the stinking book. You throw the book at these people. I'm not even going to keep going. You guys know what happened in Waukesha, Wisconsin last year at the parade. Guy gets in a car and just mows down people. This is a guy, just mows them down. I don't remember how many people died. Was it 7 or 8 or so? I can't remember. Or like 20 people injured. Killed kids. And then you look into it and go, oh, yeah, he's actually been arrested a whole bunch of times. They let him out of jail for, I remember, was it $1,000, $5,000? After he tried 2 weeks earlier, tried to run over his ex. Anyway, the point is that we're letting people out of jail constantly. And what does the federal government do? They show up at pro-lifers' houses with 20 armed, body armored agents. That sounds a little bit more like authoritarianism to me than the Supreme Court saying, actually, sorry, that was bad law. We're going to overturn that and send it back to the states. That sounds a lot more like authoritarianism to me. What are other examples of that? Here's another one. What about the power of the federal government at work? You guys have heard this. Voices. Now, thank God it hasn't happened. And this is why you got to go vote. Hello. This is why you got to go vote. Thank God it hasn't happened yet. But there are voices on the left trying to make it so. And you know it's to be here. Woo, about to get. I'm so upset. I can't. Here's what we need. We need Moses, not Marx. Look at that t-shirt. Hello. That's given me for my friends at Apologia. Now, listen. I'm about to go buck wild. Here's another reason why I'm beating the dead horse. Not everybody on the left is saying this. I will be fair. Not everybody's saying it. But almost no one on the left is saying it's a bad idea. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, they are completely silent about it because they know they're not allowed to say it. But there are people on the left calling for the federal government to make it illegal for you, parent, if your 8-year-old boy says he's actually a girl and he wants to begin to take hormone stuff at 9, 10, 11 years old to change his sex, to change his gender, whatever you want to call it. They want to make it illegal for you, the parent, to say no. They want to, I've read all this on Cooper stuff. There are voices on the left, people calling for this to become federal law, you guys. Now, thank God this hasn't happened yet, but almost no one on the left is saying absolutely not, we can't do it. They know they're not allowed to do it. Now, there are people not in political office on the left beginning to say it. These are people like Bill Maher. These are liberals that will not ever vote for a Republican. This is people like, who's the massive podcaster? Joe Rogan. People that are not Republicans. Joe Rogan was a Bernie Sanders supporter. All right, so these are people on the left that are committed to leftism. To be fair, a lot of them are committed to what they would consider old school liberalism, maybe. But you get the point. These are not Christian people. They're not Republican people. They're people saying, what you're saying is just bat, poo, crazy. We can't do that. But none of the left politicians are saying it. They know they're not allowed to do it. Now, does that sound a little bit more like scary stuff for your children than whatever this historian's talking about, the Republicans want to line children up and kill them? Which one of those things sounds more authoritarian to you, right? The authoritarian nature of the modern left is getting so out of control. They believe that they have the power to teach your kids whatever they want at school. You, the parent, you don't have anything to say about it. It's not up to you. So actually, the authoritarianism is actually kind of coming from the left. They're a little commie-ish. A little commie-ish. Do you agree? You don't have anything to say about sexual education. We're going to start them at 5 in our schools. Gender theory starting at 5. The radical stuff that I'm not going to mention again on the podcast today because I know some people are bothered by it, and I get it. The radical sex stuff they want to teach your kids in 4th grade and 5th grade that a lot of you parents don't even you don't even know what those words mean. Good Lord. They actually think that you don't have anything to do it. Guess what else they don't think you have anything to do? You don't have anything to say, parents, about whether your kid should get the, what's the word for the shot that you want to put into your arm that for the, what caused the lockdowns. You don't have anything to say about that. We're going to force your kids to, you know that there are still cities in America with leftist mayors trying to make this happen right now, even though all of the statistics have come out and everybody knows it does nothing. It does nothing for these kids in schools. And we have that. We have the statistics of schools that locked down, schools that didn't lock down, the statistics in terms of how many of these kids were hospitalized, how many of these kids died from all this. It doesn't make a difference. The only thing it does is it hurts the kids who didn't get to go back to school. It's remarkable to me. All this comes down to what the main thing that I want to tell you guys. Let me look up this article, but here's what it's about. It all comes down to this. It is the definition of democracy. And this is why it matters. Christians, listen to me, people. We are not nitpicking when we say that we have to get involved with what people mean when they say words. Words matter. Their definitions matter. And this is why you can say democracy but mean two completely different opposite things. Okay, the idea of American democracy as opposed to some of the other ones like the French Revolution style democracy. What you first have to understand, because we don't study history anymore in this country at all, is that Stalin always talked and praised his form of, quote, democracy, all right? You have the French revolutionaries that went in and just murdered people, the Great Terror. They called themselves a democracy, true liberty and things like that. So just because somebody says they love democracy doesn't mean that they love what you necessarily love. The idea of American democracy is representation, all right? The idea of the way that America works is that yes, it's for the people, by the people, but it is not strict majoritarian rule. It's not 51% of America agree on something so they can force the rest of the country, everybody else in the entire world, to do exactly what they say. That's not actually what American democracy is like. American democracy recognizes that we have God-given liberties. These are liberties that pre-exist government, right? We always say it. The American government does not give you rights. They protect your God-given rights. That's amazing. We don't have time to get into it. But that's a huge thing, by the way. So what it means is that the government cannot overreach into your personal rights. That means the way that I raise my kid, deciding if I want my kid to learn the sex education that the school wants them to learn. A bunch of sicko pervert commies. I have that's my rule. That's not yours. You don't have that. You can't do that. We have representation. It's also why we have like the Electoral College and things like that. This is the perfect way to say it. This is why the American left always wants to destroy the Electoral College. It's because they say, well, yeah, but they didn't truly win. Hillary Clinton got more actual votes than Trump in 2016, yet Trump ends up winning. It's completely unfair. That's because we don't work on actual majority rule that then forces everybody else to do something. This other concept of what you call democracy. This week, Tucker Carlson said this, and Ben Shapiro said this. I thought it was funny. They were discussing the same thing, that democracy is on the ballot. Their take on it was basically what the left means when they say democracy is on the ballot is this: you have to vote for Democrats. What they mean by democracy is what we like. And I thought that's actually kind of true. It's a really simple way to say it. I'm giving you a little bit more of maybe the details of what that actually means. What they mean is this, that the, quote, will of the people is the ultimate rule. And if the left thinks they understand what the will of the people is, then they should have ultimate power to force it upon everybody else. That's what happened in 1970 in Roe v. Wade. That's why abortion became enshrined by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did not have the right to do that. They did not have. They found an imaginary right to abortion and the right to privacy. Did not have the right to do it, but they were mad that certain states didn't want to do it. So the way our government works means that they cannot force it upon, those states didn't want to do it, but they said, no, we don't care. We believe it's the will of the people. We think that we know what true freedom is. We know what true liberty is. We know what true equality is. And when they say equality, they don't mean equality under the law. They don't mean equality of opportunity. They mean equality of outcome. They mean equity. And if you give us all the power, then we will know how to make sure that everybody is equal. And women cannot have equity if they don't have access to abortion. Therefore, we are going to force you to do it. So they enshrine it into law, even though the majority of Americans don't actually want that. They think they know better. They did the same thing with Obergefell and same-sex marriage. Some states we're saying yes, same-sex. We do same-sex weddings. Some states are saying we don't do same-sex weddings. Not even what the majority wants, but it doesn't matter because the left says, you know what? We know what equity is, and you have to give us all of the power. And if you give us all the power, we're going to give you true democracy. That's what they mean. So I'm going to read this article, a little bit of this article. This is in FEE, F-E-E. But they point out something good here. Liberals and libertarians admired the fundamental values represented. Now, I'm telling you what we're talking about here. Ludwig van Mises and F.A. Hayek both hailed the ideas of 1789 and contrasted them with the ideas of 1914. That is liberty versus state-directed organization. All right, so we're now talking about France in general. All right, in the various ways that France has understood democracy, the French Revolution, and then yada yada. Listen to this. The Declaration of the Rights of Man, issued a month after the fall of Bastille, enunciated libertarian principles similar to those of the Declaration of Independence. So listen to this. Number 1, men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Number 2, the aim of all political association is the preservation of the natural and imprescriptible rights of man. These rights are liberty, property, security, and resistance to oppression. Number 4, liberty consists in the freedom to do everything which injures no one else. Hence, the exercise of the natural rights of each man has no limits except those which assure to the other members of the society the enjoyment of the same rights. 17, property is an inviolable and sacred right. Okay. Now, listen to these. These are really important. Listen to these, because some of those you go, okay, that kind of sounds similar to a lot of things. We have special libertarianism, which basically means that the government should have literally nothing to say to me about anything. So extreme libertarianism could be seen as approaching anarchy. In other words, cocaine should be legalized, things like that. Okay, that's extreme libertarianism. But listen to these two. This is number 3. The principle of all sovereignty resides essentially in the nation. You hear that? The principle of all sovereignty resides essentially in the nation. Now, that's different than us. No body nor individual may exercise any authority which does not proceed directly from the nation. Now, that puts supreme authority in the power of the state. We do not recognize that. We believe that there's an authority above the state. And I don't mean just Christians believe that. The founding fathers believe that, all right? And that is where your God-given rights come from. Sometimes we call them inalienable rights, all right? Number 6, law is the expression of the general will. So this is different. You could take it 2 different ways. I'll keep reading the article. A liberal interpretation of those clauses would stress that sovereignty is now rested in the people. Like, quote, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, not in any individual, family, or class. But those phrases are also subject to illiberal interpretation and indeed can be traced to an illiberal provenance. The liberal Benjamin Constant blamed many of France's ensuing problems on Jean-Jacques Rousseau, often very wrongly thought to be illiberal. Now, this is important. I'm not going to read... Yeah, I'll go ahead and read it. His quote, by transposing into our modern age an extent of social power, of collective sovereignty, which belonged to other centuries, this sublime genius, animated by the purest love of liberty, has nevertheless furnished deadly pretexts for more than one kind of tyranny. Going back to the article, he says, that is, Rousseau and too many other Frenchmen thought that liberty consisted in being part of a self-governing community rather than the individual right to worship, trade, speak, and come and go as you please. In other words, what they're saying is this. We Americans, if we love American liberty in its, what I would call the purest form, we say, I have the right to go to church and worship God because that is my individual God-given liberty. The other side says, no. Not if the city of Kenosha doesn't agree that you have that right. Do you see what I'm saying? So democracy now is the, quote, will of the people. And the will of the people, if 51% of my city, Kenosha, says, actually, John, I don't think you do have the right to go and worship at your church because we don't like that you guys stand against abortion. And we think that what you're saying is sexist because you are saying that women should not have equal rights because they should not be allowed to have abortions. So actually, you don't have that. And if 51% agree, that's the will of the people, and that's what they mean when they say democracy. I believe that the modern left in America is very much in line with this thinking. It is a collectivist type of democracy. All right. They don't believe in individual man. They believe in collective man. And if collective man says it has to be, then they want to push it down on everybody else. But the modern left in America, what we're seeing right now is even a step past that, because some of the things that they want to enshrine, actually not even 51% of Americans even agree on. Even if 51% of Americans agreed on it, it's still wrong to do. Do you understand what I'm saying? Even if 51% agreed on it, it would still be wrong. That's not how American democracy works. It is set up so that no one can be ruled by a tyranny. What happens if all of a sudden New York City keeps growing and growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and all the people in New York think, well, what's best for everybody is third trimester abortions, partial birth abortions, maybe even infanticide, maybe even if we don't like that kid after a year, maybe you can still kill the. I'm of course being a little bit. I'm not saying anybody's saying that. I'm being hypothetical. I'm following the logic. Well, let's just decide that everybody in New York just decided that was the way it would be, and in fact, no one should ever go to any church who said anything against infanticide. Well, all of a sudden, if New York keeps growing bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and everybody thinks one way, well, if they wanted to, and if it's just a matter of majority vote, well, then they can press their ideas against all those Christian people down in Mississippi or Georgia or Florida or Texas that are like, no, absolutely not. That's not what the Bible demands. So then what could happen is that New York could push a tyranny onto people that don't even live anywhere near them. That is how we are going to have United States in this republic. So it would be wrong either way. But what we are seeing on the left right now, and why I think this election matters, is because they are a step past that. They're not even a step towards, if we have 51%, we can force you to do something. They're not saying that. They're saying, hey, you dummies, you idiots, you rubes, you stupid religious people that believe in fairy tales like Jesus Christ. You people are not smart enough to make decisions for yourself. We are the elites. We are the experts. Hello. We have people like Dr. Fauci. All right. The science become flesh himself. We have experts, and you need to let the experts tell you what to do. And if you just give us all the power, we will institute true democracy, which is defined by equity. Hello. It's like Scooby-Doo. Hold on, we got to take his mask off. Who is it? It wasn't a ghost. What is it? Hello? It's a communist. That's what that means. They're just acting like communists. They're acting like socialists. They're acting like elite authoritarians, pushing all of their views down on the rest of the country. But they call it democracy. That's what's actually going on. So I agree with them. Democracy is on the ballot, just not the way that all the commies meant it. You know what I'm trying to say. I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks for watching Cooper Stuff.
Read the Bible.